Right, so today we're going to be looking at the Year 9 Season 4.2 patch notes, specifically the operator win delta graphs and everything for both console and PC. We have Bikini Bodhi joining us. You probably know who he is. If you want to give yourself a shout
Hello.
out, feel free. But
Oh, I'm terrible with that. Hi, everyone.
Goliath in the community for many years now, so I feel like I don't even have to give you a shout out. But I think this is quite an interesting one because this is the first one post Blackbeard remaster. You know, everything we've seen before this, Blackbeard on this chart has been the rifle shield. This is the first time ever with the hull adaptable shield, which is its government name, appearing on the charts. And looking at his presence on both console and PC, he is mainly veering into the overpicked to weak section, which is something which, you know, these graphs aren't everything in the world. There's more to it, and this only takes Emerald and above, I believe, if I'm not wrong. So Platinum above. So there is obviously a massive part of the community that doesn't get, you know, seen in these patches and these different pieces of info because, you know, casual players and stuff like that, and they're also not really accounted for.
I mean, there's always gonna be moments where like certain operators perform better or worse in a certain elo. I still remember that very old Frost graphic of like how useful the Valcom mats was back in, like, they were really strong in copper, and then like in gold they became worse, and then they spiked up again in like diamond back in the day.
That's really cool. Like, the higher the rank you are, it was like the more likely. It was like just like a mountain peak basically from like bottom to top, and then like gold was like the peak, and it's like, I mean, gold
was the dip.
Oh, gold was the dip, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry, like the opposite way. Yeah. It's like more people higher you are standing it, and it's like, I think that's because, like, not to diss gold players, but they spend more time looking at the floor, whereas higher ranks, I'd say, would spend more time head level, ADS. You know, it's stuff that can trip you up. So
there's nuance to it.
Yeah, definitely that. Yeah. So in terms of Blackbeard, I think we can apply for this at least. I don't know if we can just look at these charts and just be like, Blackbeard's overpowered. You know, the remaster made him overpowered. You may think that. You might even be correct when we say that, but I don't think we can just use this as concrete evidence. I think there's a word I'm looking for here. It's probably a better term than this, but I feel like we're still in the honeymoon phase with Blackbeard with his remaster. I think to just be like, oh, he's blatantly overpowered is wrong, because I feel like not a lot of people have maybe even had the chance to counter him, may I say, because he has been banned so much. So people are like, okay, well, he's banned so much, I'm going to start banning him. They're not necessarily getting that full grip so far of Blackbeard. So I think maybe over time, we might see him decrease in pick rate, win rate, ban rate, which we'll get into in a minute, but yeah.
Yeah. On that note, though, there is also a pretty neat buff for Oryx, which does help deal with Blackbeard to a degree, I guess.
Yeah. I really like that.
Because he has like 0.1 second recovery rate when he hits a person now.
Yeah,
it's going to be so like easy to deal with shields. If he doesn't have support behind him, that is.
0.3 if he's running in the hallway randomly. Oh no, was it 0.2?
Yeah.
0.2 if you're running randomly, 0.3 if you hit a wall, I think it is, and then 0.1 if you hit an enemy. Actually, I have it in front of me to confirm that.
Fast.
It's 0.2 if you hit nothing, 0.3 if you hit a wall, and 0.1 if you hit an enemy. So, you know, you're gonna be winning against the enemy every single time, which I think fair enough. If you're in a position as Oryx to barge someone down without there being a teammate behind them, like if it's a solo shield player, like fair enough if it's like a 1vx for that shield player, but if it's like a 4v5 and the shield player's pushing alone and the Oryx is in a position where they can knock them down and not be punished for it, that's that shield's player's fault. I think a lot of people at Blackbeard, like you're saying like that, I think a lot of people with Blackbeard are going to play him more solo orientated a lot of the time than they would with like Monty and Blitz now that they've been nerfed, because I think a lot of people might have that confidence with Blackbeard that they don't have with those ops.
I think it's really good because the meta, at least, I mean, I don't know how it's been for you, but I feel like with this season, the meta has sort of like been pushed back a little bit towards like less focus on roaming, more focus on sort of heavy setups on site. Like especially if you're roaming solo in this current meta, you're gonna get deimos. You're still gonna get, you know, blitzes running down, Blackbeards. So like having more ways to deal with these things solo is probably a really healthy thing for the game, just to counteract it a little bit and freshen it up a little bit, of course.
Not to mention Dokkaebi as well in that list.
Yeah. Dokkaebi, Lion,
still being that one-man army, in my opinion, at least. But Yeah, so Blackbeard's ban rate is
Hmm.
something very insane. So console, he's sitting at just below 30%, so roughly like 38%. And on PC, he's sitting at what seems to be 45% ban rate. So almost half the matches in Platinum and above on PC, Blackbeard is not present. Jackal being the most on console, which
Hmm.
maybe some opinions there. I personally feel like Jackal's ban rate was determined years ago. I think whatever they do to Jackal, he might still just be comfort banned. I think they could maybe
Hmm.
remove the pocket shotgun just to eliminate some potential tracks through floors. Like if you want to get a track through floor, someone else has to open the floor. That whole thing there where it's like teamwork rather than solo. But I can't imagine what else they would do to Jackal to lower his ban rate. But yeah, he's overtaken Dokkaebi on PC and Monty, of course. He had the shield nerf and everything. Dokkaebi is interesting though. I feel like
Yeah.
because her nerf wasn't substantial in my opinion. I thought
No, no, no.
like I,
Absolutely not.
I thought it made sense. I think okay, I get it. You got to survive longer in the round for more calls, but you know most good players weren't dying early with Dokkaebi anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you get that
It
call, it
didn't
still
really
doesn't.
change much.
Yeah. So
No.
yeah, neck and neck with Dokkaebi on console, and of course overtaking Dokkaebi on PC. So, do you truly think that the whole Blackbeard ban right now is because it's just sort of like that shock reaction to this primary weapon wielding shield operator?
I look at it like this: like people have always found shield operators frustrating, right? No
Hmm.
matter if when they've been strong or weak, right? There's always a frustration, and Blackbeard is a shield with a significantly better weapon.
Hmm.
He's gonna fight back more easily than other shields would. So there's always going to be a level of frustration there. I do
Yeah.
think like you're right. Like Ubisoft are probably planning to do something, but it's like honeymoon period. They want to collect more data. I think the one thing that I could see like is that feels quite good when you're playing as Blackbeard is the fact that you have access to frags and you can
Hmm.
like from safety you can throw a shield, you can
Yeah.
force a guy to have to move, and then you can just gun him down. That feels very strong. So I don't know if they might want to tune that. Not necessarily like remove frag grenades or anything like that, but maybe change so he's a little bit more exposed when he's throwing a nade. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of get what you mean there because I feel like there's a bit of a weird animation desync with that. Like
Yeah,
technically, if you slow it down, he does move the shield to the side and like throw it around,
yeah,
but it's a bit weird sometimes. And there's actually been some cases where like the shield will go horizontal, which is a bug. Like that, I'm not
yeah,
saying that like, but that has been a thing. So I definitely get what you mean. It's sort of like I feel like maybe tidying that up a tiny bit might work. Not necessarily to the extent of him fully moving the shield like when he reloads his
yeah.
primary weapon, but maybe just like a halfway, just maybe like more of a side expose when he throws the grenade. Throws the grenade. Because I definitely get what you mean because especially with having two, I've been in so many situations where it's been like I lob a grenade to that door, I lob a grenade to that door, they're pinched either side, and then I can just ADS when they're
Yeah.
panicked, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's playing into the whole gadget, but I feel like I should have, be a bit more exposed when I'm doing that. So, yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of different variables, but I mean that's good because compared to his old rifle shield, that's a very shallow gadget. If they wanted
Yeah.
to buff or nerf Blackbeard back then, they could either do weapon changes, health of shield, quantity of shield, and secondary gadgets, and I guess speed as well. But that's very shallow compared to a lot of operators, where with the adaptable shield, which what makes it such a good remaster in my opinion, is because there's so many layers. If they want to nerf Blackbeard now, they can remove his repel through window, his counter to castle, X, Y, and Z, remove the nades, and still have like still a lot going for him. So I definitely think from a balancing perspective, although he's currently the most banned, way better for them to balance him, nerf, buff, whatever it may be. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't say because I've seen some like shock reactions on Twitter, people saying like, "Oh, this remaster was like a mistake or it wasn't a
No.
success or anything." But it's like, no, by all means, this was a success because Blackbeard can be fine tuned way more than he was before. And yeah, I don't know.
100%.
I'm like excited to see the future of this operator and future of potential remasters we may get in the future. I don't know what operators they could be. I've thrown out a few concepts myself, but I'm sure you may have your own ideas for who you want as a potential remaster in the
I
future.
don't I've actually had the people ask me the question, like, what would be the next operator that they would sort of like dedicate an entire season to their work? And personally, I don't know if I think there's one that like needs it, like stands out and like, oh yeah, they need to be reworked because in their current sort of iteration they can't really be balanced effectively or
I
something.
get what you mean, yeah.
I can see some like mechanical changes to operators like Clash to sort of ease down the frustration of fighting Clash and whatnot, but not to the extent where it would be dedicated for an entire season.
Yeah. As much as I think Clash is like okay, like I don't think she's broken or anything.
Yeah.
I can understand from like a design element that she's in like a really weird spot because you have 0.2% of the community who actually know how to use her and know how to synergize with a team, which what makes her so strong. And then you've got like the rest of the community who kind of either see her as a throw operator, or when they do play her, they actually have no idea how to properly play her. And then when they're trying to play against her, they have no idea how to properly counter her. So, like,
It's so weird.
yeah, it's like, can we say that is a skill issue, or can we just say that that's probably not the best design of an operator? You know what I mean? It's like
a little bit of both.
Like,
as much as I do love playing Clash and I love what she brings to the game, there is like problematic things with her and sort of unintuitive, like how are you actually supposed to kind of deal with her. But I wouldn't say it's like obviously a high priority given how little she does see play, and she is like still a good operator in the right hands and everything.
Definitely. Yeah,
But,
like
yeah,
round winging operator, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's not just that backbone operator that the bad players go into when they can't get kills. Like, no, you can do strats which have never even been thought of before by using a Clash and holding down positions. And I mean, like a concept that myself and my community came together was like, you could potentially make her sort of like a defending version of Osa, where like if you want to use the zaps, you have to have the shield placed and physically be behind it zapping, and then like you can give her a primary weapon and everything. The only thing I see an issue there is you may have the same
isn't that
issue
just
as
old Tachanka?
well, to an extent, because you still have to peek over the shield. But I was more thinking you'd have the same issue as old Goyo, where like you have this abundance of deployable shields, but like the whole balancing trade-off here was like you'd have the same effect of Clash's shield, of like anyone can mount it and uses like the zapping feature of it to slow people down, but Clash has to physically move them herself, and you'd then have the same counters as a deployable shield and a Talon shield has, albeit explosives, gun 6, all that stuff. So I don't know. I think there's stuff that can be done. I also think it's a weird situation, and you also just don't want to change an operator for the sake of it. Are you wanting to take a look at more of these patch notes and start talking about some of the changes which came in this patch? The first of which is Buck, with the removal of the heartbeat charge and the addition of
that
a
one
Claymore.
hurts, but I get it.
Not an operator I would visually look at and say he needs changing, but I think the overall philosophy with Sledge right now, I get it. Like, I'd be...
I mean, Claymore is nice.
Yeah.
You can actually cover your flank and now you can start doing vert stuff. So I don't hate the fact that it gets Claymore, but it was really good to play like both soft breach and hard breach at the same time. But I get that that's like kind of loaded. Like Buck has always had this, like he's been so loaded and like they've just kept kind of tuning it down. Maybe he could get his gun 6 back now. I don't know, but
maybe I think a lot of that should be dependent on how well Sledge starts to perform.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into in a minute more when we get to the Sledge section. But
yeah.
Is it enough? I don't know. Again, we'll talk about it in a second. Buck, though, I think even with the hard breach charge removed, and I think Claymores, for example, I think a lot of people sleep on them. Like, I think something people need to realize that like even if a Claymore is destroyed, that is still a sound cue that someone is trying to flank. Like, even if you don't get a kill with a Claymore, there can, well, most of the time there is something to be gained there. There's a flank, alert, shall we say. So definitely for like an operator playing vertical, whether that's above or below.
Especially now that I've been loving this season, but I don't know. There's just been something really weird with footsteps this season.
Oh, I agree. I think sound's been terrible this season. It's been awful. 100%.
Like I have people sprinting like right next to me, and it makes no noise. And like I'm usually not the person to like complain about sound or whatever, but like I honestly kind of want them to go full on. Like I think it was Modern Warfare 2, the remake, there was like people were complaining about how like loud footsteps were and everything, and like how like it rewarded like campers and whatnot. I want Siege to do that. Like I need to hear footsteps
Yeah.
again. Like
It's been
so
rough.
annoying.
Like I'll even have people dropping hatches beside me, and I'm just like
Yeah,
not
yeah.
hearing anything.
Yeah,
It's
I don't know.
been a bit rough for that. But yeah, I still think Buck is probably like top 5 attacker still. Like I don't think it changes anything about him. Well, it does change something about him, but I don't think it changes like the core philosophy of him as an operator. Like he can still survive without hard breach charge. He's not a hard breacher at the end of the day. He's a soft breacher. But an operator, which I feel like a lot of people are going to blame me for getting nerfed, because I made that video like 2 weeks ago talking about him, where I didn't say he was OP. I literally said he's not OP, he doesn't need a nerf. I was just assessing his place in the meta because he's the most banned, high pick rate, high win rate. Kapkan, no more nitro cell. He now has the barbed wire.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's fine. I look at it like this. I feel like Kapkan, he's like the one operator where like, man, I'm not hitting my shots today.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna jump on this one operator that most likely I'm gonna pick up like a freebie with either the traps or like a good C4 throw. So they're tuning that down a little bit, which yeah, I'm fine. The one issue that I have with this though, and it's something that's like I almost highlight every single patch, and that is that Ubisoft, I feel like they don't really sort of like respect prep phase timers when they do some of their balancing changes. Because Kapkan already spends almost like his entire prep phase just putting down 5 traps, not doing any walls or anything. And now he has to either put down a bulletproof camera or barbed wire, and like you just don't have the time to do this. And he's not the only operator. You have Maestro, Castle, Mira.
Maestro especially suffers from this. Like,
yeah.
Not to mention that camera bug this season where like you have to replace them and stuff like that. But I've been trying to play so much more Maestro, and it's like 3 evil eyes, 3 deployable observation blockers. Sorry. Because you're a 1-speed anchor, people expect you to make rotates as well with the bailiff, and you're like, bro, I just don't have the time to do this stuff. So that's a good point with Kapkan, yeah.
Even further on the note, we go back to something that I've also been very vocal about, and that is if you're one of the 5 people who actually still play quick match, then you're dealing with I think it's the prep phase. There's like 30 seconds.
Yeah, shorter.
So even more, you can't actually like do a setup if you want to, because you just simply do not have enough time to do it. And I think that's something that Ubisoft really needs to start looking into, like that they're actually respecting prep phase timers when they do these kinds of balancing changes. Because I don't hate it. I love the idea of having barbed wire on Kapkan, but it's gonna start getting like really rough and tedious to do all of these prep phases every time, and feel like I'm always running out of time, and I'm stressing about getting that done.
I think that can kind of bring like a bigger question out of that, of like, should we start changing the prep phase? Not entirely, maybe just like anything that gets placed in the prep phase is 0.25% faster than it would be in the action phase, or like
I think I've always kind of raised that like they should just make it so that defenders are all 3 speeds in prep phase, and then like once the prep phase is over, they go back to the normal speed. Just sort of like a getting going buff, right?
I get that. That's an interesting take. I can't really think of any situation that would actually break anything. You know what I mean? So I mean, think that would encourage site setup as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it would just help people run around, set up, do walls and everything. And like hell, I mean, you could argue that like everything can just kind of be sped up in prep phase, like you said. Like maybe you just reinforce walls a bit faster, only in prep phase. Maybe you reloads faster, etc. But just in prep phase, sort of like just getting started. Like we're pumped up. We're
and then when you get straight into the action, it's just like same as Siege. If you've missed a wall, it's got to be the old way. If you've wanting to place a gadget late round, you've got to do it the way that John Ubisoft intends you to do it. So
exactly.
I actually think that's a really good take. But do you agree with the TikTok comments which are saying that Kapkan is now dead and he is the worst operator in the game?
No, I don't agree with that. He's gonna be fine.
Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. Like you can, like you said, like, oh, I'm playing terrible this match. Let me fall back on Kapkan. There you go. I just got 2 EDD kills this round, and one of them was the hard breacher. And that's you should. And I don't think they should like take that aspect away from him. Like I think Kapkan being a crutch, dare I say, is a perfectly fine thing because we've all been there, and he can still be countered in many different ways. So but definitely in his position right now because of way a lot of people play the game. So like rushing, not checking blind corners or anything, and it just leads to Kapkan getting a lot of free kills, which then those players who are playing that playstyle are then banning Kapkan as to not deal with that consequence. So weird position for an operator, depending on if you play this game right or wrong, if you want to put it that way. But yeah, interesting. But let's jump over to Lesion. His change was that he now has 8 goo mines, down from 9, and they take 30 seconds to refresh instead of 25. I can talk about Lesion for ages. I think he was severely overtuned back in Operation. I can't remember what Operation he got that change. 2 years ago at this point or something like that. I thought it was completely unnecessary. It really annoyed me, right? Because this was the time when Thorn was like, still is underperforming. And they're like, we've identified that Thorn is our worst performing trap operator. To address this concern, we are going to give her the 1.5 times scope. And then it's like Lesion gets the whole gadget buff. And I'm like, something's not connecting here. We've just established that this one has the worst performing traps and you're buffing her gun. And then Lesion's getting, super shorty, goo mine buff, initial damage back, more goo mines, stacking, X, Y, and Z. And it's like, who's got the favoritism here? You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was a bit silly. But I mean, wow, what a change now, huh?
Mate, I've just never. I don't like initial damage. Dare I say it? I thought, that was to compensate for cloaking going away. I thought cloaking was fine because when it was cloaked, it made the gadget an electronic gadget. It is now currently a mechanical gadget because they removed the cloaking. So with it being an electronic gadget, it had all the same counters that Kapkan has. IQ. EMPs, and Brava could hack it, meaning that defenders could stand on goo mines as well. I thought that was quite a cool aspect to goo mines, and same with like the initial damage going away, because standing on a goo mine alone is a massive intel. You can't can't run, you can't plant, your position is given away. There's a lot that comes from a goo mine, which I feel like didn't need change.
No, I guess I don't know. There's a part of me who did enjoy that change because it immediately opened up like a lot of interesting things to do with Lesion. The fact that you could now go back to stacking the goo mines again and like do the whole like Lesion one shot thing was really fun. And I don't know if you remember when me and my friends found the whole like water bucket thing. That was really fun, and it did open up that world quite a lot. Yeah. So I guess I've enjoyed Lesion more than you have.
Yeah.
And I do feel like the change here in the patch notes is absolutely like kind of a nothing burger. I don't think it really changes.
I still think he's like top 5 defender. Like I think for me, I think to put Lesion in a good spot would just be remove initial damage. I just think that's unnecessary for how much intel and stuff that he gives away. I think if you remove initial damage, I still think Lesion would be fine. I still think he'd be very strong. I still think he'd be a go-to pick, but I think he'd definitely just be a bit less frustrating because, you can use the argument, look at your feet, drone every corner, but that's such a perfect case scenario when there's 10 other things happening at once. You're having head-on gunfights with people. A goo mine, which has a massive area of effect compared to its hitbox, it's, standing on the other side of a doorway. It's easier said than done, you know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know. Very different opinions throughout the community of Lesion. I'm definitely on that side of it. Oryx buff, something which is always good to see. I think
the only concern I have, which is like, I mean, you know me, I've always been sort of like anti-fragger, anti-young gunner stuff.
Swing everything, no intel.
Yeah, so I think that's the only like sort of concern I might like. I do love that he's gonna be like more of like a dedicated shield counter now, which is cool. But I am a little bit worried that he's gonna like jump up in pick rate like drastically, go to like 80% pick rate.
So
because people just have this like super mobile roamer with a good gun.
My take on that is like I feel like you're always gonna have that play style no matter what.
Yeah,
and I would rather it be the dedicated roamer like Oryx who is getting that playstyle, without an acog, without necessarily like I'm going to compare him to Doc. I'd rather it be Oryx running around the map with no acog and no healing capability than the guy who can heal himself to 100 full HP every time he gets shot with an acog. You know what I mean? So I feel like we're always going to have that playstyle. It's nothing that you can get rid of. So the operators that I would like to at least be played in that playstyle would be the ones who are designed around that playstyle, such as Oryx and preferably Vigil without the whole Bosch G current thing, but that is getting a change, which we'll talk about in a minute. So yeah, it's a playstyle that will exist. I'd rather it be Oryx than Doc in a sense. But yeah, good change. I think an Oryx buff is always something nice to see. I think as long as he's not getting an ACOG, I'll take a buff from him because, you know, it's just going to become a messy operator again if he gets an ACOG, in my opinion. Yeah, you're happy with that? Let's jump over to Ram. Simple buff. Simple nerf. But nothing too crazy. ITA 12S pocket shotgun removed. Someone in my TikTok comments said that they should give her the super shorty instead. Whatever that would cause, just switch in seconds short, you know, knock yourself out with that one. But again, this is overall in the whole Sledge era, which honestly, I think they should have opened this patch note with the Sledge change before announcing the Buck and Ram nerf, because I think that would not justify them more, but just, all right, that's why they're doing.
They could have grouped it together.
Yeah, like Sledge being right at the bottom and Buck being like number 1. It's like, okay.
I guess they do it in alphabetical order. So they started with
I didn't even realize that.
You've never noticed that?
No, I've just kind of thought they stun any operator off the top of their head.
B, K, L, O.
Well, this is unfair because
S.
you know I can't. Yeah. You know I can't read, so this isn't really fair.
It's okay.
But yeah, the removal of the pocket shotgun. Like, did she ever really need it? It kind of reminds me of like test server Ram, where she had the hard breach charge as well. So she had like,
and what, 4 buggies?
So she had 4. She had 4 boogies. No, I'm trying to remember. Did she get the pocket shotgun as a compensation for losing the hard breach charge?
I don't remember actually.
Regardless, there was never a state of Ram where she didn't have a hard breach charge or a pocket shotgun, which, as already the most safest vertical soft breacher, if that would be the good term, the highest destruction, you can do it from safety by throwing it through a window. I felt was overkill, and I think, I mean, it was overkill, because like, why bring a Sledge when you can bring this R4C wielding, you know, auto breacher, or Buck, who's just an amazing operator. So yeah, I think they balanced Ram and Buck pretty well in here. Balance would imply that they were both overpowered. I wouldn't say they're necessarily overpowered. I think Ram's frustrating, don't get me wrong. I think it would be nice if like the boogie had like a full health bar rather than just the red canister. You know, make it something like 350 HP, 500 HP, but I'd like to be able to shoot it from below rather than just using an impact or going for the red canister. Just like a little change like that, nothing crazy. But yeah, so sort of taking away other aspects of other soft breachers. So Buck losing the hard breach and Ram losing the ITA 12S. And we'll just group this in with Sledge anyway because it's next and it all ties together with it. I don't think that'll be enough to make Sledge more playable than those two in a soft breaching sense. I think for the most part...
He will see more play though.
Oh, he will, because if anyone's not a 1-speed, people will play them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like Sledge is just going to be the exact same as he was when he was a 1-speed for me personally. Like, the same way I would play Sledge as a 1-speed is the same way I would have probably played him as a 2-speed. So overall, I'm still going to play Buck and Ram more than I'm going to play Sledge, if ever playing Sledge.
I think I will say, like, we are kind of overlooking one aspect there though, and that is the fact that Sledge is still the one soft breacher who has nades.
That's true. That's true.
So being able to open up vert and then be able to flush out a person from a power position is still something that is an advantage that Sledge does bring to the table.
Good point.
So don't forget about that.
Do you think, from an overall aspect of flushing out positions, that a grenade is, what's the term I'm looking for here, like, could achieve something different for the most part than bombarding someone with flashbangs and boogies to scare them out of their position, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think, I mean, it doesn't play into as much in ranked, because in ranked you see the top floor be the most picked site usually, no matter what map it is. So obviously it comes more into play when we're getting to like third sites or whatever. So it's more of something that I guess we would see in comp. But yeah, like being able to, there's spaces where like only a nade is going to actually flush out the person, have them actually have to leave that position. Whereas flashbangs, especially now that flashbangs are only 2,
That's a good point. Yeah.
I think nades are better in those regards for sure.
Something I saw on, I think it was YouTube comments that people are saying like it might be a good position to give Sledge hard breach. I don't know if this is something I've not really thought into. I just kind of just read it and thought that'd be a good thing to bring up. Cause I still think even with hard breach, I think Ram and Buck would still be more
well, being able to do both
desirable.
is very good.
Yeah.
And one interesting fact on this, given that they're using that sort of argument for Buck with not wanting him to be able to do both, Hibana can do both. She still has breaching charges and her X-Kairos launcher.
We can make that same argument for Striker as well, with hard breach charge and...
Yeah, see, I just forget that the recruits exist. But yeah, I guess you could, yeah. So yeah, it is interesting because they're not applying the same logic there, but they are applying it when they're grouping the soft breachers together. But
I will say, I think out of the 3 soft breachers, if any of them were to get hard breach, I do think Sledge would probably be the better one, purely because his, obviously his soft breaching capabilities isn't as insane as the other 2's are. So giving him that little extra edge, I guess, would work. But I don't know. It's an interesting position Sledge could be in. I think he'd definitely... Meta wouldn't be the term. I just think good would be the term if he had that, because again, what can be achieved with a Sledge with a hard breach charge can already be achieved right now with a Striker or, like you're saying, Hibana. So it may be the comfort of Sledge, it may be the comfort of the L8 5A2 compared to whatever Hibana's weapon's called again. There's so many different aspects that make very similar operators picked over, each other. But 2-2, I guess, step in the right direction. It's nice to see Sledge getting a buff after all these years. Give the people the SMG11 for all I care. I don't think it matters that much, but it's going to make people happy, so why not? Because
I think the only reason why I would disagree with that is back when they did remove the SMG11, it actually, like from my point of view, it made more people actually play Sledge as intended. Like they actually started sort of making vertical. I saw more Sledge players make vertical and play on it. Before that, it would be a lot of people that would just kind of just run in, break down a barricade with the Sledge, and then just try to frag out with the SMG11. And I don't think that was the intended way to play Sledge from like Ubisoft's point of view.
Do you think though, with more alternatives to that playstyle nowadays, do you think if he did get the SMG11 back, Sledge would kind of be still that reserved operator now that people have played him that way for a longer time?
No clue.
It's one of those things you won't know until you try. The test server doesn't exist for a reason.
Yeah, but on that note, and I think it's something that Ubisoft is conscious about with certain things, why they won't test it, is because they don't actually want to tease people that it might be happening, especially if they're already kind of set their mind to not have it be the case. Because then you can kind of split people on that. And it's like, oh, why was that on the test server and why you're not shipping it? Like if you look at the neck changes with her being immune to proximity mines and all that, et cetera, and then the fact that they didn't ship that, and even to this day, you still have people that are mad that they haven't shipped that change yet. And so I think that's something that Ubisoft is conscious about and why they might not test a lot of things on a test server, even though that would be amazing. I'd love that. But yeah, I can see what they might be.
I guess from me, from like a content perspective, I just love a good conversation about stuff. So anything that can like spark a convo, I'd just be like,
oh yeah, same.
Yeah, do it, ship it, go on, like, don't know, give Maverick a pogo stick or something. I don't know, but just like
I fully agree. It's just Ubisoft will obviously be considering sort of like reception on everything, and they might not necessarily want to deal with all that.
Yeah, no, I definitely get what you mean. It's like even like Vigil's K1A ACOG, it was on like, or 1.5, it was on the test server for like a day, and still people talk about that.
It wasn't even on the test server. It was in a content creator thing.
Oh, so there you go then.
For like, and they never actually made it to live.
That was before my time, but
yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. Let's jump over to slug shotguns because this is a department which I feel like you're very rooted in.
Ah, that's why you brought
For,
me in. Okay.
for better or for worse, this is I wouldn't say this is your doing, but you're definitely in the roots of this
Yeah,
history.
I've actually had a lot of people blame me, which is funny.
Which I
Because
remember back then, like it wasn't even just like
yeah,
I'm Bikini Body. I want the Boss G to have an ACOG so we can run around the map and get free kills. It was literally
yeah, no.
back then that gun was just terrible. It was
Oh,
like
it was dog shit.
it
Yeah,
was a throw pick every single time.
yeah.
ACOG was still as kosher as it is now for the most part on defense.
Mm.
So it just kind of be like, wouldn't it be funny if we gave the worst gun in the game an ACOG? And it was like, the community rallied behind that one. That was
Mm.
a time to be alive. I remember that one, and even in the
Yeah.
patch note, it had like a little crab or something beside it, didn't it?
Ah,
Not?
it
Or
was a bikini.
oh
They put
yeah.
the bikini emoji on the little Twitter post that they made, I believe.
Did you think, by the way, when you were going for that entire meme, that you'd be sitting here almost in year 10 with the Bosch G being one of the most problematic weapons
No,
in
no,
the
no, no,
game with an
not at
ACOG?
all. But again, I do want to preface this entire conversation with like I am actually pretty happy about this nerf. I am one of the people that sort of thought that they did overbuff it
Mhm.
because that's obviously what had happened. Like they write in the post that they did some sort of normalization and they overdid it with the slug shotguns, and that's actually what made it so well going into sort of overpowered territory lately.
Yeah.
And I'm with them. I think it should have been nerfed, and they did. And obviously acog wasn't actually what made it all of a sudden be
It was
broken
the
after
drop
5 years
off.
of
Yeah.
existing. Yeah, it was the drop off, and they're fixing that, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah. No, definitely. Uh, yeah. It's just funny that that gun just became the thing. I think
Yeah.
it's just hilarious. And the SMG-12, I think, is like one of the most meta guns now as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know for like PC. I get it. Like, I think PC's got enough recoil on it. Then like, if you're a terrible player, you're gonna struggle. You may get that lucky headshot with the high fire rate. If you're a good player, you can control it for the most part. I think the issue was just surprising because this is much different to the console game I used to play.
Mm.
Console recoil back when I played in like year 5, year 4, it was very hard. You had to be really skilled to use it, and they didn't really change it that much from PC recoil for the most part. Like
Mm.
it was definitely a challenge, which definitely led it to be like console is definitely harder than PC. Then nowadays, console has a completely separate recoil pool, and the SMG-12, from as far as I can see from like people telling me this, has like near to no recoil for the most part on console than it does on PC. So it's became like the meta weapon, and of course having an operator like Vigil, which has the Bosch G on top of that, they've kind of go hand in hand.
I think that's also in due part the problem is you have people running Cronoses,
Uh huh.
not just on console. There's I've been hearing that there's actually people running Cronoses on PC as well to get controller recoil patterns while using a mouse and keyboard. Because controller recoil patterns are obviously a little bit less wild. So
Yeah.
if you're using that with a mouse and keyboard, you can basically get non-existent recoil while still playing on a mouse and keyboard. So I think that's something where they might start to actually have to mousetrap people on PC too. I don't know if that's actually a thing, if that's enabled on
No
PC, but
idea. People will
yeah,
do anything but just play this game legit. It is
yeah,
crazy how many losers there are out there.
it's insane.
Um, but yeah, taking a look at this slug changes, because obviously it's not just the Bosch G, it's the ACS-12 for Azami, Alibi, and
Yeah,
Maestro, the TCSG for Kaid and Goyo, and also the Vendetta for Deimos, which is a separate thing. So, I mean,
that's just a destruction thing.
yeah, so it's just the range of its destruction. So, uh, does the same damage as before, has the same drop off as before, it isn't changing or anything, can use as much bullets as you were to like open hatches and stuff like that. It's just, well, I assume that does. I don't know if that counts as destruction or damage when it comes to opening hatches. But not the same things here. I think it's kind of weird that they included it here. I thought they would just give it its own section just to lower confusion,
Mm.
because I'm seeing so many people being like, "What the heck they doing to the Vendetta?" Um, but ACS-12 and TCSG gets a buff as well to 75 damage to compensate for this.
That
ACS-12,
is scary.
yeah.
So my math guy did the math on that one, and I think at the max drop off it's 53 damage in limbs, meaning that you can two tap a 3-speed in the foot
Oh,
at
really?
any range.
Huh.
Yeah, so that is potentially really funny.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting that they preemptively buffed it without seeing how it would perform either. Like
I
they
think it's
didn't.
because it hasn't really seen that much play lately, right? Goyo is running the vector with the ACOG, right? And Kaid, I don't feel like has seen too much play
Really, every
generally.
time I see a Kaid, it's TCSG.
Really? I
Me personally,
For
yeah.
me, it's
Like,
like, yeah, the same. I run it as well, but I do feel like, I mean, I don't see Kaid that much in general. What's his pick rate? Wait, let me
if
double
I
check.
scroll up, he is currently on
20%.
PC.
Bandit sees a little bit more play and mute if you're looking at wall denial, sort of.
He is still in the upper chunk of pick rate though. Like, he's not in the cluster,
Yeah, he is
the
in,
lower
yeah, you're
cluster.
right about that. But he's the
Uh,
least picked wall denial, if anything.
who are you classing? Are you classing Mute as Wall Denial?
He can be, but I mean, I wouldn't prefer him.
So,
I would personally pick him last if I'm looking for wall denial.
so are you just classing Wall Denial as Kaid and Bandit then?
First and foremost. But there are moments where, like, if they ban Kaid, which sometimes happens, and then we ban Bandit just to screw them over, and then Mute is
You
obviously
just
the one
no,
on
you
the
just go
left.
to Chanka and you open up every wall and you just play a completely different thing. It's like you're not expecting
I
this
mean,
one,
it
are
does
you?
it does change up the game a lot, and I
It
do like
does.
going for bans that do that. So yeah, yeah.
Um, you've also got the G36C getting a recoil buff on everything on both platforms.
Yeah.
This was really funny when I made my video on this because it was like 40% of the time Ayana chooses the G36C, which you're like,
Mm,
admirable number. The ARX is a great weapon. Both of them are
mm.
interchangeable in my opinion. It can come down to
Yeah.
personal preference. I personally play the G36C on Ayana. Have nothing against the other weapon. But yeah, I just prefer that weapon on her. And then it's like
Mm.
Ash uses her 2%. Like what? Like this feels like year 5 Siege all over again. Like, do you remember when
Yeah,
no
I
one
mean,
would ever use that weapon and they're like, what we're gonna do is we're gonna give the R4C recoil, we're gonna
yeah.
remove its ACOG, you're gonna all play that weapon. Then everyone played that weapon and they're like, you know what? We're gonna buff the R4C, you're gonna get off that weapon. And it was like, what are you
I mean,
doing?
it's just the R4C has a cult following.
Yeah,
It just
it's
does,
not even
right?
like it's the greatest gun in the game. There's better guns in the game, and it's like
It is.
it's just it's the R4C's R4C. R4C is just the R4C, so it's like yeah, well, I'll pick it. It's the R4C, you know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
of course
I'm
people are
curious to
gonna pick
know
it.
what the pick rate of the R4C is on RAM now, because the RAM is R4C and LMGE,
Yeah,
right? Like,
Sophia's
surely
LMG.
that also has like 90% plus pick rate.
I
Surely.
I do think so because I personally never run the LMG on RAM either, but I think that's a
Yeah.
different kettle of fish because
Yeah.
it's AR versus AR and then AR versus LMG, so it's
Oh yeah,
like
for sure.
but that's crazy. 2% is hilarious, but it's like
Yeah.
I mean, at the end, like, is that problem? Like, is that actually a problem at the end of the day? Because it's the R4C. It's like Ayana's getting use out of it. You could give it to a third attacker if you wanted to. I think you might just have to accept at the end of the day that Ash's weapon is the R4C, and that's how people are
Yeah.
gonna play Ash. Like, is that something that needs to be changed?
I don't personally think so. I do think that it would be fun if you had more classes of weapons to choose from. But having two ARs is obviously, people are always gonna go for
Yeah.
the better AR in that sense. Uh, but if she had, like, I don't know, M1014 Ash, that could be kind of fun. But I don't know, pick rate on guns, I don't really personally care for. I only really start caring about pick rate when it's like a specific operator, because when I'm seeing one operator 90% of rounds, it
Doc.
starts getting kind of bland. Yeah,
Yeah.
Doc and Ash herself, actually, right? We're seeing them so often, and there's also, you kind of have to highlight that. It's like, why? Like, I get that they're comfort, but why are they actually being picked essentially every single round? Like, they're just that good, and even bad players are gonna pick an operator that's just that popular. And the fact that they can still sort of maintain a essentially perfect win ratio despite being a sort of like comfort operator, it does say a lot about their sort of power level, because like Ash is pretty good.
I have like a hot take with that. Like, I have
Yeah.
like when comparing Ash to Doc, I don't think Ash is necessarily an issue, but I think Doc is an issue because I
Mm,
feel like on attack you're bound to have an entry fragging operator, and it's just
mm.
Ash is that one. You know what I mean? Like you've seen what happened. Like when you nerf Ash, everything it goes to Ayana, and then if it's not Ayana, it goes to someone
I'm fine
else.
with it being more spread out, because then we get different kinds of flavor,
Oh
and
no,
I like
I
having
agree,
that.
but I feel like
Yeah.
so actually different question related to that then. Do you think we should get a new attacker who is solely based on entry fragging?
I like to have more options
Yeah.
for sure.
So do you think Zofia should be reinstated to her former glory?
No, I don't think Sophia.
No, do you
Because
think
I think
she was in the wrong
she's
role?
more suited. I think so, and I think they also made Yana more support operator as well, which I think fits her gadget more. But I think we have operators that could potentially fill it to some degree. Like I've been entering on Finka this season, and that's been doing decently well too. But
Would you not think she's better suited for support like Ayana though than because I mean
true,
big
yeah.
risk of entry is dying early and think is an
No, but I
operator
mean,
that
I guess
benefits from.
Blackbeard. I think
Yeah,
if
I
anything,
mean, yeah.
Blackbeard should be an entry
Honestly,
now, right?
I agree. I think he
yeah.
is the next big entry. Hence the
Mm.
hot reception to him. I think
Yeah.
definitely. Can't think of any more off the top of my head. I mean, not Grim. Sorry, Glaz for a period of time in Siege's history was a massive entry fragger. It was.
True.
I can't remember what
But Ying,
stage of his.
Ying, I guess.
Yeah, I can't remember what stage of Glaz's evolution that was, but I think it's good we've moved away from that. I don't think Glaz should be an entry fragger. Surprised Striker hasn't taken more entry fragging roles. I think
it just boils down to the recruits are very flavorless. It's kind of like you have this like wide selection of very cool operators and whatnot, and you go human male warrior, right? It's super
Striker's actually
basic.
female for the record. She's a British female, actually.
Yeah, no, but again, I was speaking WoW terms. I've been playing hardcore classic recently, so it's like you have this choice of like all of these cool fantasy options and everything, and you just go like the most basic choice you can. I think that lack of flavor and the fact that they don't actually have their own actual gadget, I think that was a miss that they did with New Blood.
Oh, I
but
would have made that season 10 times better. Would be like a new new secondary gadget for both sides, and you could have really leaned into like, this is how good the recruits can be. Like, here's this new attacking Molotov or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
like
I think they should have.
Yeah,
I think they should have gone for something that like it sort of like glorifies a thing that they do on each side. So like the attacking recruit could have had some sort of like
passive
extra special drone.
Oh yes,
and the defending recruit could have had some sort of extra special wall. Like maybe it's like a wall that needs to be like double hard breached or something like that.
I agree. No, like we were definitely, this was like something me and my community were like debating as well. We're like, this one was quite far-fetched, but it was really cool to talk about. And it'd be like, what if the recruits, because they might be like learning from the operators, would have like a special like blackjack ability? Like if you're in the proximity of a bandit for the next 3 seconds, you can place a bandit charge. So you have to be with them, you have to be quickly using it, you can't pocket it, has to be there and then. If you're in the proximity of Warden, you can use his glance for the next 5 seconds maybe. Like,
I can tell you
do that,
why
like,
that won't happen.
Resources.
So that basically becomes an operator that you have to update for the rest of all time. Every single time you bring a new operator into the game, then it also has to make sure that recruit can use it too, and that there's no bugs or anything with that. Basically, putting infinite technical depth on the character, because you have to every single time you have to go back and you have to fix recruit and make sure that
isn't there not operators that already exist like that though, that are dependent on?
Well, not dependent on like that they have to, like, obviously there's synergies and whatnot, but
no, definitely.
This would be that they would have to literally work with every single new thing they put in, and also make sure that they work with every single existing thing that they already put in, which is like that would be like what, 40 on each side. Like they would have to work with 40 operators plus one more every single time you introduce one more, and that's a lot of technical depth that you're introducing on one character.
That being said, would that warrant it having its own season compared to what we got? Like, compared to the operator?
Yeah.
No, it's definitely a cool concept. I wish
it's a cool concept, but sadly, it's most likely very dumb idea in terms of technical depth.
Wish we were in an era of gaming where technology just doesn't matter. We can just get like everything. Like, oh no, you eat your Call of Duty, which is 300 gigabytes on a base PS5. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I think they do that intentionally.
I was about to say that. I think they do it so you delete all your other games and you
Yeah.
only play Call of Duty. And it's like
Because you get sunk cost fallacy because like, oh, if I'm gonna uninstall it, I'm gonna have to reinstall this for like 20 hours again. So I don't want to uninstall
everyone
it.
has like no SSD, no one has like an external hard drive. Everyone's got mediocre internet at best, and it's like
Yeah,
definitely. But Year 9 Season 4.2 patch, would you say give me a rating out of 10? I'm gonna put you on the spot.
So my expectation going into this was there's gonna be like a complete nothing burger because usually pre-SI patches they don't tend to do any ballsy moves before SI because they don't want to shake up the game too much.
No.
So the fact that they did actually bring in like what cool stuff that they could do that doesn't shake it up too much, I'm fairly pleasantly surprised actually.
I'd say the only one which would be like a pro league, not meta shaker, but would actually a little dent would be buck hard breach charge. I don't think any of the other changers majorly would affect pro players. Like Kapkan, they're not going to care. I don't think for no nitro cell.
I think the TCSG.
Oh yeah,
might actually be the.
We'll have to
big
see how
one.
that performs. Definitely.
Yeah, because when you do crunch the numbers, it's it'll slap. And we'll have to see. I think keep your eyes on the TCSG.
Well, I'd like to tap people with it because I missed so many shots, so I'll happily take that crutch from it. But yeah, I think good patch. Sad to see that Dokkaebi is still the one-man army she is, and she still lives another day.
There's someone who works at Ubisoft who like really loves Dokkaebi.
Loves Dokkaebi so much.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're gonna nerf her. It doesn't actually nerf her. It's like...
at this point, it's like, what do you even do to her, man? It's like, cut her down. I feel like maybe like give her the deimos treatment. Like you can call one defender at once. You can knock one defender off cam, make it count, knock the maestro off, knock the echo off. This is what you have to do. And maybe still affect dead defender cameras or something like that because you can't really target.
I think that's a consistency thing. So yeah,
but yeah, like something like that. Not a universal. You have no cams. Your phone is ringing. We can also see you get fucked. You know what I mean? Like I was playing Chalet the other day. I had 3 evil eyes in sight, bulletproof camera and everything. Our random goes off, dies instantly. And then I just have evil eyes and vault cameras and bulletproofs looking at me all over sight. Now, luckily, cool siege moment, I had observation blockers in sight, which, if they're hacking the cameras, they actually can't see through. So, you know, a lot of layers there, which was cool, don't get me wrong, but like my phone is ringing, I have 7 cameras which are bulletproof looking at me, which are my fucking cameras, and I'm just like getting so pissed off at the Dokkaebi and the other team. And then I just played Dokkaebi every single round after that, and we won.
Yeah, I think very hot take, I guess, but maybe it's time we separated the hacking of all the defender cameras ability away from Dokkaebi.
Introduce Aiden Pierce from Watch Dogs, and he comes in. He's like, "I'm gonna hack your cameras."
No, but I mean that's like a Brava thing, right? Like, because at the end of the day, do you think Dokkaebi actually needs to be able to hack phones?
No, Dokkaebi can do like 5 different things. Like,
yeah,
she's wall denial with EMPs. She's util denial with Gun 6. She's camera denial. She's roam clear. She's intel gathering, I guess, by hacking the cameras. It's like and the DMR slaps as well, because DMRs can also open up hatches and they can also counter Kiva barriers. It's like, what do you want this woman not to do? You know what I mean? It's like,
I think a better change would probably be that we remove the hacking phones to get access to their cameras, but instead of they can make it so that you gain something when you hack a phone. Obviously, people have toyed around with the idea that you could get another call after you hack a phone instead. I think I would prefer that over her getting access to all the cams.
Or if a defender dies, they still drop their phone, but it's Brava's clutch drone which has to hack it and not Dokkaebi's tablet.
That's kind of spicy, actually. Yeah.
I think Brava's something I want to talk about in a different video alone, because I feel like she's so cool and has so much depth, but I feel like she's that hard to pull off that it's like, I feel like we've never seen the full potential of Brava. You know what I mean? Like, I only, for the first time ever the other day, had a hacked clutch drone as Mozzie. Like, ever since Brava's came out, that's never happened to me. And I never even got to do anything with it. They didn't place claymores, they didn't place anything. I just got to drive it around, and it's like, imagine if this happened, not every game, but more frequently than it does now. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
I don't know, Brava, like design wise, knocked it out the park. Like that's
Yeah.
peak Siege right there. That was like
Yeah.
when I saw that reveal, and I was like, because we were in Montreal, remember? And I was like, this is sick. Like, there's so many layers to this. The whole Mozzie thing. He even have his like exclusive Mozzie Brava icon when it's like rehacking a drone and stuff like that. So much cool stuff. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
for sure.
tangent I can go on for another time. So I feel like, especially since we're almost at the 1 hour mark, maybe we should try wrap this up a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, patch, thumbs up from me. I like it. I think this is a good step in the right direction. I like how we're past the stage of nerfing recoils and giving people and removing ACOGs. I think that was a poor stage of Siege's life cycle. I think we're past that with the current philosophy. So yeah, I think it's a good patch. I've been pretty impressed with most of the recent patches, to be fair. Maybe, you know, not by everything necessarily, but I've liked them. I think that I can like at least see the vision, and I think their explanations make sense. So yeah, pretty
I
happy
agree.
with it.
Oh.
Virtual handshake through the cameras. You're to my left for me, so it looks like... There we go. Oh, thank you for joining. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me.
Salute. Catch you later. Like the video. See you. Peace.